from above. Dominating this perspective, a vast tract of land sweeps across 2 continents and 11 time zones. A confederation of states, which, despite recent defections, remains the largest political entity on Earth. This land is often described as Russia. Yet, as recent events have brought clearly into focus, Russians are but one of more than 100 ethnic groups in this confederation. A kaleidoscope of 290 million people speaking over 80 different languages. They are the human face of the Soviet Union. Siberia, and just south of the Arctic Circle, Nakano village, the home of the Karpov family. A small cluster of log cabin homes on the banks of a frozen river. This remote village is one of the furthest outposts of human life. Nakano is a settlement for about 200 Evenki people, one of the indigenous races of central Arctic Siberia. Inside her log cabin home, Katya Karpova rises for a bracing wash. The water is stored in a large barrel. Piped water would freeze solid in the Arctic conditions outside. Katya is Evenki, but living here in the remote homeland of her people is a conscious choice. A solo mother, Katya has returned to the village of her birth after 9 years of Russian city life in St. Petersburg. She went for university and later married there, but now divorced, she's moved back to share her mother's Nakano village home. Katya is now the principal of the village's school, the only one for thousands of kilometers. This year, her 7-year-old son, Vasya, fresh from his city life, will start his own schooling here in isolated Nakano. Tatiana, Katya's mother, is a tough and resourceful woman. This early winter morning, the temperature outside is already minus 50 degrees. Siberia. The word means the sleeping land. For the old Russian Empire, it meant the land beyond the Ural Mountains. They saw merely an empty wasteland, another world of scattered tribes with strange customs. But Siberia is now emerging from its reputation as a place of suffering and banishment. It's seen today as a place of potential, the sleeping land that contains the wealth of any new Soviet Union. But its development is tough. Snow and ice dominate 9 months of the year. This is one of the coldest inhabited places on Earth. It's a land of almost constant winter. The ground is permanently frozen a kilometre deep beneath their feet. Even in the brief summer, only the top metre thaws. Though Siberia contains half the nation's land, it supports less than 1/10 of its people. It's a challenge few choose to face. In a region where pneumatic tyres would burst from the intense cold, the people of Nakano have the Arctic pony to thank for most of their transport needs. Somehow, this hardy breed survives outside, in the harshest of climates, unstable the entire year. Katya's brother, Andrei Karpov, lives at the edge of Nakano village. His wife Nadia prepares breakfast. Andrei manages the village reindeer herd. It grazes in a valley 60 kilometers to the north. Today, he must return to the feeding station there. Their 8-year-old son, Seryoja, has just started school, but he must do without his father's support for a few weeks. The family won't be without help. In this close-knit village, survival demands that everyone supports each other. At a neighbouring house, another villager prepares to leave. Ivan is going fur trapping. He uses one of the village's few motorised vehicles, a diesel-powered ski-mobile called a buran, Russian for snowstorm. The blowtorch is essential to heat the motor before starting the buran. Started cold, or rather frozen, as everything outside normally is, the motor could simply shatter. The extreme cold has one benefit. This kindling is tinder dry, the moisture drawn out of it by the sheer cold. Valentin Karpov, Katya's father, is also divorced. He now lives with his new wife, Yevdokia, and their 2 daughters and grandchild. Both Valentin and Yevdokia will soon join his son Andrei and others at the Reindeer Valley. Their daughters will stay to look after the house. Irena, like Katya, has a university degree. She's the village doctor. As Katya walks from her home to the schoolhouse, she crosses a village largely devoid of men. Most of them away hunting, trapping, or tending the reindeer. Nakano seems to be a village of women and children. There are 40 school children in Nakano, but they're not all from the village. Its tiny population provides only 25 of them. The other 15 come here from even more remote settlements to spend 9 months each year boarding at the schoolhouse. They'll stay till they're 15. Unlike Katya, most of the children will never go further. Some may go south to higher education and university in the cities. Those few are unlikely to return. Aside from Katya and her sister the doctor, there are virtually no opportunities for qualified people in Nakano. But most of the children will stay here. Girls to run the village, boys to hunt and trap. The stillness of the forest is shattered by the diesel-powered buran. Ivan the fur trapper, now far from the village, has come to his first trapping area. He'll have to restart the motor within 10 minutes. Otherwise, he'll need the blowtorch to heat it again. He works quickly for another reason too. There are only a few short hours of daylight. At this time of year, the sun barely skims the treetops, rising at 10:30, setting by 2. The trap is for any of the small game so prolific in this wilderness. Arctic hare, squirrel, ermine, and, most valuable of all, sable. Morning in Nakano village. Andrei Karpov prepares to leave for the reindeer station 60 kilometers north. He needs his full kit of Arctic clothes. His boots are made from the thick hair-covered skin of the Arctic pony. The skin is from the pony's lower legs, the most insulated and time-tested part of the animal. Andrei's leggings are multi-layered wool weave, and underneath them he wears other layers, 2 sets of full-length woolen underwear. He'll also have to wear a heavy coat, the same as the leggings, and as a final layer, a lightweight anorak, along with his fur hat and mittens of Arctic hair. The bullets are carried as a precaution. A pack of 9 wolves has been spotted not far north of the village, the direction Andrei is heading. The village dogs, many of them half-wolf themselves, will keep them away from Nakano. But travelling alone is dangerous. The Evenki have a deep respect for their harsh environment. It's not a place to be taking risks. Andrei has already warmed up the motorized Baran. His journey to the reindeer will take 3 hours, most of the daylight time. He won't return for 6 weeks. Separation from their families for this length of time is normal in the life of the Evenki, so Andrei is typically matter-of-fact about it. Nakano has only 7 motorized Barans. They're used for long journeys. Far more common around the village are the Arctic ponies. They have been used by the Evenki for centuries. The villagers make and maintain their own handcrafted harnesses and sleds. They're made mostly of wood and rope. Leather soon dries and cracks in the chill of the Arctic air. In these conditions, equipment doesn't last long. Today, the men are heading just beyond the boundaries of the village to collect hay for the ponies. The hay is stacked where it's grown, on the far bank of the lower Tunguska River. This hay grows rapidly and is dried here in the few hot weeks of the northern Siberian summer. With the thaw in May, the temperature climbs above 0, reaching a brief 30 degrees Celsius average during the short August summer. Then, almost in a single day, it plummets back in September to the sub-zero norm. From then until the following summer, the ponies are fed on the short season's hay harvest. The river in winter is covered in ice up to half a metre thick. It has become an ice highway that serves the village. Now the sun is dipping below the trees, and it's only mid-afternoon. But for Ivan the trapper, still setting traps, and for most of the people back in Nakano, the early darkness means outdoor work must come to an end. Ivan returns to the camp he has established, a small tent with a portable firebox. Shelter not just for himself, but for the precious Buran as well. At the schoolhouse, the most imposing building in the village, Katya ends her day too, preparing the next day's lessons. Most of the teaching is in Russian, though there are classes in the Evenki language. Until early this century, the indigenous Siberian peoples have been largely untouched by the Russian Empire. The legacy of the Soviet government has been their program of formal education. For another important villager, the working day is just beginning. Vladimir is a Russian who has come to the Arctic because of his specialist skill. He operates the village diesel generator. At dusk, the generator is started up to provide light for the log cabins of the village. At this time of year, the generator runs from sunset at 3 o'clock in the afternoon until 11 at night. By midwinter, it will also run for an hour or two in the darkness of the mornings. The village store opens in the afternoon. Nadia Kapova opens it when the lights come on. It stays open for 2 hours. On this afternoon, a visiting trapper has come in for supplies. He is not Evenki nor Russian. His height and his features are those of a Tatar. He's a descendant of the warrior Mongol horde who swept from Asia to dominate the history of much of this land. This man has come in to replenish his supplies. They're substantial. He may not again come in from the forest until spring. The Nakano store carries a wide range of basic commodities. It's a trading post for the other, even smaller settlements that are dotted throughout this Arctic region, hundreds of kilometers apart.
получится.
Так, Танечка кушает хорошенько. Хорошенько кушай все.
Katya's mother, Tatiana, has also been to the store. She often looks after the children, while Katya works on at the schoolhouse and Nadia works at the store. This afternoon, there's a special treat for tea: canned peaches. Grandmother asks if anyone wants some more, but Vasya says, "I'm too full." Back at the store, some of the village women are sampling a few other exotic items, just in from the cities.
Сзади воротник я поправлю.
Straighten up the collar, the assistant says. "I'll take it," says the customer. Later that evening, at Katya's home, a group of the village women get together. The gatherings are common among Nakano's women, especially when their husbands are away, trapping or looking after the reindeer. They talk about clothes, cooking, and swapping recipes.
Приходите ко мне почаще на чаек.
They drink tea, eat sweets and snowberries, and make light of the trials of bringing up children in Nakano, a village where they're often left to their own resources for weeks on end.
Таня, говорю, вязочка оторвалась от самой. Она, значит, стоит над ними, читает. Какие хорошие саночки были.
Дедушка!
Где дедушка? Где дедушка?
Вон!
Ну, беги. Все, беги. Километров больших расстояния, радость новых открытий и встреч. Здесь не любят минут.
The song is a traditional Russian folk song about Siberia. It tells how, in the long nights while the men are away, it's only love that binds husbands and wives together. Vladimir, on duty at the generator hut, is one of the few Russians who permanently settle in the Siberian north. The government pays 50% above standard wages for working in Siberia. Such incentives are needed to retain workers in this frontier region. Many come, usually to work in the mining, oil and timber towns further to the south, but few stay. Vladimir is one of those who did. He's been accepted into the close Evenki community of Nakano, and now has no desire to move on, despite the solitary nature of his work. For entertainment through his lonely vigil, he has his own selection of recorded Russian music.
Дирки дуби, одем гудей, мама кума, ланма ноде, 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 ноде.
Back at Katya's house, the songs are now in the native tongue. Holding out an Evenki betrothal rug, Tatiana sings about the beauty of young Evenki brides. 60 kilometers north of Nakano is the village's reindeer feeding station. Foraging on this meager pasture, these creatures manage to survive the harsh winter on their summer fat reserves. In the past, the indigenous peoples of Siberia were nomadic. They followed the reindeer. The animals were central to their lives, feeding them and clothing them. It's only in the last few years that the men of Nakano have encouraged the local herd, over 100 deer, to feed regularly in this sheltered valley, where they can tame them and tend them. Last year, they built a small cabin up here. But still, when extra workers come, they need to erect a temporary shelter as well. A portable firebox is one of the essentials for living outdoors in this bitter climate. Besides cooking, the firebox must be kept burning day and night, not just for heat, but to keep water from freezing. There are no running streams or rivers in this frozen valley. Snow has to be gathered to melt for water. The reindeer have learned to respond to the calls of the villagers. They've been attracted by regular feedings of salt, an essential mineral which the deer particularly enjoy. While the herd are gathered, their health is checked, and deer in poor condition are singled out. This buck is lame, not seriously, but enough to settle his fate. The rest of the herd will be left to wander freely in the valley after they've been given a vitamin booster injection. For the lame deer, death is expertly quick. Almost every part of the reindeer is useful to the Evenki. Its meat has an excellent flavour and a high nutritive value, considerably higher than beef. Its liver is eaten raw and frozen, providing an essential vitamin balance to their diet. The antlers are sent to the cities for tourists, and the hides for export. 500,000 Siberian hides a year processed into suede. Even the hair is used for mattress stuffing, and as it's hollow and very light, for life preservers too. Every day at 4 o'clock, Nakano makes its scheduled contact with the outside world by radio-telegraph. This can operate on a much weaker signal than shortwave radio. Over the vast distances of Siberia, it's the most reliable form of communication available. It's also the only one for Nakano which has a chance of immediate response. There are other ways of communicating beyond the village, but they demand patience in waiting for a reply. Mail is carried by an irregular air link. There are no roads to Nakano. The nearest town of size is hundreds of kilometres to the south, across trackless forest and tundra. The air service is vital. The aircraft arrives 3 or 4 times a month, weather permitting. In bad weather it can't land, sometimes for weeks on end. It carries the mail and passengers, takes out the village's exports, furs and reindeer products, along with equipment needing repair. And it brings in provisions for the village store, diesel fuel and equipment. This biplane is a 20th century link to the still traditional way of life of the Evenki.
Совхозил ты на баян, мама, а я мамад бодо дёро, ара картинка темеме, сигди леду и чевдере. Тир керде омолгилмо, насад кармони кендере, Давлавун ты на ты канун, короёли гаендере.
Ivan the trapper returns to check his trap. He's been lucky. It's a sable, the most highly prized commercial fur in the world. Immobilized in the flat jaws of the trap, the animal has frozen to death in minutes. Trapping is a traditional occupation, but the emphasis at Nakano's school is on integrating the Evenki into the modern Russian Federation. Katya is teaching this class of 14-year-olds about Russian literature.
Все гости буквально заняты только одним делом, что они распространяют этот слух. Так, давайте сами посмотрим.
They're studying the work of the 19th century Russian playwright Griboyachov. The play, Grief of the Mind, tells the story of a young man who tries to speak the truth about society and life, corruption and power, but is deliberately labelled as mad by his peers. Katya discusses the topical theme, freedom of opinion and speech. In another classroom, other children are taught their native Evenki language. The word tree in Evenki is ermol.
Эрмол, что это такое? Это деревья.
Evenki language is compulsory here as part of a state policy to support minority cultures, even if the textbooks seem a little dated. To keep the schoolhouse and the homes warm, a regular supply of firewood is brought into the village. Men assigned to the task deliver it to the front of each home. It's tinder dry, the last traces of moisture drawn out of it by the sheer cold. At these subarctic temperatures, even the air cannot contain moisture. Nakano's wood-burning stoves consume a lot of timber, but the vastness of the Siberian forest and the careful use of the resource means that there's no shortage for the village. Outside, the villagers swathe themselves in wool and fur, but they leave their faces uncovered. Any covering would trap the moisture of their breath and instantly turn it to ice. Inhaling through that can cause pneumonia. Inside, a comfortable warmth is provided by the constantly burning fires. All the homes are built of heavy logs. The inside walls backed with woolen insulation, the ceilings filled with earth, and the windows double glazed. This degree of protection enables an indoor home life not very different from those in more temperate climates.
Робот-то как его делают? Давайте быстрее. Пусть идет длинная, она. Так, Вася, делай. Быстро. Вася, молодец. Ну, давай, Сережа, быстренько. Ну, там осталось.
Cutting firewood is not merely a chore, but a necessity of survival. For the boarders at the schoolhouse, this evening's firewood has a special purpose. It's their weekly bath night. Every home in Nakano has a bathhouse, and the school is no exception. The temperature inside is like a Finnish sauna. Outside, it's still a numbing minus 52. The Tunguska River, which flows alongside Nakano, is more than just a frozen highway. It's also a vital supply source, the village well. Every day, the water carrier delivers a barrel of water to each of 6 houses. It takes 10 days to supply the whole village. Then, it's time to start again. Bizarre as it may seem, with a few hours of feeble sunlight, the villagers hang their laundry outside to dry. But they don't dry of sunshine. They dry of cold. In the frozen air, the moisture is crystallized out of the fibers. Clothes are taken in frozen, but dry. They'll soften up once they're inside. Clothes are not the only possessions that have to be tough in this climate. On the other side of the village is the Sled workshop. Here, the sled maker builds and maintains Nakano's transport equipment. The materials used are largely traditional, and though the construction may look basic, the the sleds are still the most durable and efficient transport in the Arctic North. Another routine of Nakano life takes place about 10 kilometres downriver. There, the village has a permanent fishing spot, a series of openings smashed regularly through the river ice. The catch is hardly substantial, but to the villagers, these fish are a delicacy, a tasty supplement to their staple diet of reindeer meat. But it's fur, not fish, that's the generator of local income.
Здравствуйте. Здравствуйте. Как поохотились?
Да нормально.
Нормально?
Nakano is an outpost for the state fur trade. Yura, another of Nakano's few Russians, is the government purchasing agent. These two trappers have brought in a range of pelts, the bounty of several weeks. The squirrel, ermine and Arctic hare are worth between $5 and $10. The big money, however, is for sables. These are common brown sables, worth at least $130 each. Rarer silver-tipped black sables can earn the trappers up to $450 apiece. It takes 3 just to make a hat. There are only 2 full-length silver-tipped black sable coats in the world. One was presented to Queen Elizabeth II. The other to the first woman cosmonaut, Valentina Tereshkova. Today, the old Evenki trapper is paid the equivalent of about $3,000, the result of nearly 20 sables and other furs. Sasha the Tatar's payment is only slightly less. They take some of their payment in cash, but most of it is forwarded as a credit note to their bank accounts in the provincial capital, Irkutsk. There's little to spend money on in Nakano, and many of the material possessions other communities might value, like cars, are useless here. The focus is on simpler human needs: food and shelter, firewood and fresh river water. The Evenki depend on nature and have a deep understanding of its care. Their harsh environment never allows them to be complacent about survival. The pollution of their river, the destruction of their forest, or a climate change from global warming, any one of these threats would have a devastating impact on their existence.
Это вот наряд.
Ты ее спросила, она оплатит 20 рублей или нет? Оплатит? По договоренности сказала?
Договоренности, а тут написать по договоренности.
54 часа, я не знаю. Если она будет, ты ее спроси, если она будет тебе оплачивать по часам и меньше будет выходить. 64 часа. 64 часа.
Katya's son Vasya is growing up in one of the world's most remote outposts, an area long considered to be at the very margin of human existence, a maligned land which conjures up images of harsh nature and human misery. But those images are alien to the people of Nakano. They are a part of this land. They understand its moods and difficulties. Education has been important in rousing Siberian people like the Evenki. Now, many are speaking out, demanding more control of their homeland and the care of its natural resources. The inheritance they want for their children is to continue living in harmony with their pristine and fragile land. Katya Karpova is an educated Evenki who has returned to be a part of her people's new voice. But she has also come home because she values the way of life in Nakano village. It's a caring and supportive community in which to raise her son. Siberia was conquered for its furs and later exploited for its mineral wealth. It has always been a land of challenge, but also of reward and rich promise. Vasya and his mother have experienced the cities. They've lived in an easier land with a gentler climate. Yet they've returned to life on the edge of the Arctic Circle, at the extremity of a land of extremes. Nakano village, northern Siberia, home.
Где Вася? Мама. Куда он делся? Вася? Вася? Ку-ку! Вася, где ты? Вася? Вот он, Вася. Чем занимался?
Осикта кандек дерен дунела и чечене Эванун ансив дерен Экунди аксачана И чечере кисивчен, осикта канманавчан, дунену не видечен, гиркитви були дечен, иреме дечен нонам, Багдамала бегала, я вибакачан, туксаму дянатала.